So, you've heard of Black Monday. Well, what about Black Sunday? The Browns have certainly wasted no time when it comes to sacking guys after the conclusion of their 2024 NFL season. So the Browns have fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey and offensive line coach and run game coordinator Andy Dickerson. A couple of weeks ago, it was confirmed by most of the major NFL reporters, such as Rappaport and Schefter, that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry would be back next year. So it was obvious, a lot of guys on this staff were coaching for their jobs next year. And it was even more obvious that guys like Dorsey and Dickerson probably couldn't do anything to save their jobs regardless. Not with how bad the Browns offense has been, not with how bad the O-line and the run game has been this year. So was this the right move? Absolutely, in my opinion. Ken Dorsey was brought in to try and evolve this offense to better suit Deshaun Watson, and it failed miserably. Watson was playing, historically bad football before the injury, and it was beyond clear that this wasn't working. The offense, whilst it did have a few better games since Watson was no longer the starter, overall, they've been no way near good enough to justify any excuses. They are bottom 5 in nearly every offensive statistical category, in some cases dead last. They lead the NFL in turnovers with 34 and have, only scored 27 offensive touchdowns this year. Just dreadful offensive production that you're never going to be able to win with in the NFL. Somebody had to answer for, how bad the offense has been, and with Kevin not going anywhere, it was pretty obvious that Dorsey would be that guy. The play calling was also pretty bad. So many times this season I was just left scratching my head. Just seemed unable to play to his personnel, and it led to some of the worst third down production in NFL history. The Browns finished the year dead last in third down conversion percentage with one of the worst numbers in recent NFL history. The statistics aside, at the end of the day, Deshaun Watson isn't going to be playing quarterback for the Browns again. So Ken Dorsey won't be coaching for the Browns again. It's been reported that the Browns will return to their previous, West Coast philosophy under Kevin Stefanski, an obvious move in my opinion. So there's not really a spot on this coaching staff for a guy like Dorsey. In regards to Andy Dickerson, a similar sentiment applies. He, of course, had big shoes to fill after coming in to replace, legendary offensive line coach Bill Callahan. But the O-line and run game have just been so bad this year regardless. The Browns rank bottom 3 in rushing yards and touchdowns, bottom 10 in yards per attempt with a measly 4.1 yards per carry. They were just unable to run the ball this year. They couldn't get any push up front, and it was a struggle to consistently get 4 or 5 yards. The offensive line suffered injuries, but were just dreadful in both run blocking and pass protection. The Browns gave up 66 sacks this year, second most in the NFL. Now, while some of those were the fault of guys like Watson or DTR running into pressure, it's still an indictment on this O-line. Now, look, these aren't problems that just sprung up out of nowhere this year. I've been saying for a couple of years now that the Browns need to rebuild their offensive line because they were on the decline. I was banging the table as hard as I could for a tackle at 54 in this past draft. So I don't think Andy Dickerson deserves all of the blame for the terrible offensive line play, but it's clear that he wasn't even remotely capable of overcoming any form of adversity in that room. It was even reported that Vrabel was essentially acting as the offensive line coach during the second half of the season, which just begs the question, what the fuck was Dickerson actually doing? So again, same with Dorsey, I think this was the right move. I hate to cheer for anyone to lose their job, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy about these moves. No-brainers for me. Moving back to Stefanski's system makes bringing in a new offensive coordinator easier, as they aren't necessarily looking for a play caller. The O-line coach is probably the more difficult position to fill, but hopefully with some turnover in that room as they rebuild this offensive line, whoever comes in has a much better unit to work with. Add these job searches, to the endless list of things we have to talk about over the next few weeks and in the off season. I'll break down different options and, of course, react to whatever decisions they do make. But for now, I just wanted to give my initial thoughts on the sackings. It does beg the question, is anybody next? I'll certainly be surprised if Bubba Ventrone survives the week. If he isn't fired, I at least expect some form of demotion as they bring, someone else in to handle the special teams operations. The special teams wasn't great last year under Bubba's, first year with the team, but the team was winning, and he was wearing a helmet in the locker room after games, which looked cool, and it was easy to overlook it. But with the team being bad this year, it's just amplified the special team struggles even more. The return coverages are really bad. I don't know the numbers off my top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the Browns are near, the top of yards allowed per return. It's just puzzling how often massive holes appear in the coverages. They also can't return kicks themselves. They rank bottom 3 in average return yards, and after 2 years, they've still yet to find somebody capable of returning punts. That alone is a sackable offence. Just awful stuff, and I don't think they can run it back with Bubba next year. We thought Mike Prefer was bad, but if we're being honest, Bubba's just been just as bad. Now, there are some other guys you could certainly consider as well on this coaching staff. Maybe guys like quarterback coach Aston Grant, running back coach Deuce Staley. If the new OC isn't calling plays, then you'd imagine they'd spend a lot of time in that QB room. So maybe just a demotion for someone like Grant. And you could argue that, the circumstances within that running back room would help Staley's case. You could maybe argue someone like the pass game coordinator and wide receiver coach Chad O'Shea, someone I know who's been vastly unpopular with Browns fans over the last few years. But ultimately, these are roles that don't matter as much, especially when the Browns, are returning to their previous philosophy under Stefanski. And, we've seen guys like Chad O'Shea have some success within that scheme. But as I said, I certainly don't think Dorsey and Dickerson are the only guys that will either be sacked or at least see their role change. So ultimately, was this the right move? I think so. Had to address the offense, and it started with moving on from guys like Dorsey. I look forward to seeing who the Browns bring in as replacements, as they transition back to a more West Coast scheme that, let's be honest, we all know is going to result in the Browns signing Kirk Cousins. But hey, we'll see. The Browns aren't wasting any time, which is positive to see, as they try to make the moves required to, ensure that a season like this past one doesn't happen again. As I said, looking forward to seeing who they bring in, and looking forward to talking about it and breaking it down with you guys over the coming weeks as well. So that would do it for me today, guys. I was going to just include this into my my review video, but I thought, to be honest, it probably deserved a video by itself. So that's why I just wanted to hop on here and just give my initial thoughts. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free and it really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can connect and interact with me on social media. I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and as I always say, even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you all next time, and most importantly, go Browns.